Welcome to the WoW podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories and insights from our university community. Tune in for conversations about growth, success, and the power of communication in the academic world. So get ready to soar with us on the wings of wisdom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of the WoW podcast. In today's episode, we are honored to welcome Dr. Nik Lopatin. He's an associate professor of finance and the current director of the graduate school in the Dauch College of Business and Economics at Ashland University. Dr. Lopatin joined AU in 2019, and he brings a wealth of international experience in economics, finance, and data analytics. He holds a Ph.D. in economics from Indiana University, as well as degrees from Durham University, the University of London, and the Higher School of Economics in Moscow. Today, we'll explore his global academic journey, research interests in corporate finance and international trade, and his leadership in developing international, innovative programs for Ashland University. So welcome, Nik. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start out with several questions here. So what inspired your journey into the field of economics and finance? And how did your international education from Russia to the UK to the US shape your perspective?
Oh, great question. So in terms of why economics, so my undergraduate degree was in econ and finance. And the reason why I chose it going out of high school, I was not fully aware of, certain what I'm planning on doing upon when I grow up. And I was 16 when I started college, which is a bit younger. Back home, we started at 17, typically graduate high school when you're 17. I did a year earlier. And at that time, 2000s, that was a boom of innovation and businesses. My dad had his own business. I was trying to find something as close to business discipline as possible. And talking to people, just going to schools, going to school visits, I realized econ and finance were the most transferable fields I could get in terms of if I enjoy banking, or if I enjoy being more as a quantitative finance financial analyst, great. But I can also apply it in other fields. I can go work for Procter & Gamble or Unilever or anything like that. And that's the school which I attended, high school economics, offered a dual degree program with the University of London, which was a huge selling point for me because I had an external credential, external verification of my diploma, which, again, at the time, very few universities in Russia offered. And that was, working later there and just in general studying there, it was the top education you could get. We were compared to students across the globe in a sense, because University of London, that program allows students from across the globe to join, and they have partner schools in Singapore, which is Singapore National University, which is among the best schools in the world. They had schools in Turkey, so we knew where we were standing, and we knew that our students were very strong. So I graduated college. I was 20. Again, I had experience working in banking while I was in college. I worked at what would be today probably called an analytics department. At that time, it was called the Department of Internal Control, and we were essentially testing fraud, money laundering prevention. We had an in-house system that had a lot of bugs that we were investigating what was causing the bugs. So banking was something I was seriously considering getting into, and I got accepted to a program in international banking finance and at Durham University, where there was a one-year program, which is a huge advantage. I couldn't wait to start my professional journey. So 1 year, I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can do another year of education. So in terms of international experience, I would say that was very transformative, this 1 year abroad. But again, being in the school where I was in Moscow, where we had professors that were foreign trained or even foreign born that came to Russia through the job market, academic job market. So we got this international exposure early on. And again, Durham, having my classmates coming from literally across the globe. I have friends in Australia, friends in Asia, Europe, US, right? So it was very, I would say, very beneficial from the personal growth standpoint. And working for a few years back in Russia, I I was almost certain that the type of jobs I'm going to be pursuing are going to be research focused. So I needed research skills, research training, and I applied for PhD programs, and the best programs, doctoral programs, are in the U.S. So that's how I got up and got into Indiana University.
I lived in Indiana for a little bit before coming back to Ohio, so we were actually at Indiana State.
Oh,
So Bloomington, not so far away. So anyway,
no.
your whole international, your world obviously expanded greatly with these experiences. So looking back on that now, how has your teaching philosophy evolved after having been in these different academic cultures?
I would say I always try to bring that international experience in my teaching, in a sense that I can tell them as simple as experiences and stories that will connect the same concept through different, lens. Specifically in finance, we have a section there in my finance course that I teach, international financial management, where, for instance, we talk about peculiarities or specificity of running a multinational organization, where you have, for instance, a branch in Middle East, a branch in Europe, which will have very different cultural background, how to navigate that. And when it comes to, even, having international students in my classroom, I think also I try to encourage them to speak up in my classrooms, be like, hey, you're coming from Japan. This is great. Like, what do you know about like how operation is different in Tokyo versus what we do here? This is what we do here. Tell us what's done. So I think it's definitely important to keep an open mind, and having these experiences, and again, having lived in several countries, helps to introduce that in my teaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Moscow, London. How did you end up at Ashland University? Can you tell us? And how has your experience here differed from your previous academic endeavors?
Great question. I like to tell the joke that when I was in Indiana, I always said I want to move east. I didn't specify how far. I grew to really love in Midwest and the culture and in people. And but again, like you said, I came from one of the biggest cities in the world. I lived in England, which is insanely densely populated and has a lot of really big cities. So in Indiana, early on, I was like a little bit. I felt missing this big city life. But actually, right now, I live in Columbus, and I'm like, no, we need to move as far away from the busyness of the big city as possible. The academic market works. It's a very centralized thing in econ and finance. And I saw the application, and I remember, so like I was applying. It was, I think, November, actually around the same time when I submitted my application to Ashland. The great thing about it, I'm a trained economist. I have, again, my master's in finance. It would be great experience to the department at the time was economics and finance, and I weighted analytics in there. I thought it would be great if I could get into a program that can allow me to combine two of my specialties, two of my preferences. So, and it worked out great. In terms of comparing to other schools, so I was teaching at IU. One of the strengths, I would say, of doctoral programs at Indiana University is that you get a chance to teach. At that time, it was from your second year in the doctoral program. Now it's more closer to a third year. And I, like, the moment there was an opportunity to teach, I was like, yeah, I want to do that, because I taught in Russia. I wanted to see how it's different in the US. And Indiana was different from Ashland. The fact that we have residential campus and there's more close student teacher interaction, even though my classes at Indiana were not horrific, 150 to 100 students that are common in the bigger schools. I had like maybe 60 highest that I ever had in the classroom. It was still more, I would say, one-to-one interaction. You get a chance to know students more. The fact that we work as a faculty, work as academic advisors, I actually find it a huge advantage, for both students and faculty, because you stay on top of what's going on. You can help your student. And after all, we have accent on the individual, right? This is a huge thing that another was a huge factor for me to choose Ashland. I like this approach, right? Where students are our customers, and we are a Christian school. We're here to serve, right? So that were great. But I would say the biggest difference was that, again, more in person, more in person touch to teaching. The fact that your colleagues were a very very good group of a lot of my colleagues. We have a very tight group of people, and we're taking care of each other. It's like, oh, I have this advisee student who's like missing a class. Is there any chance your class is a prerequisite for that one? Can they do concurrently? Of course, that I really like this dynamic. It's kind of like feels like we're a bit of a family vibe there too. Yeah.
Yes, it's a really special place to work. I think Kara can speak to that. But as far as I think it's a very special place to go to school, to be a student as well.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, great. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Andrew Roble, who is the Associate Director of the Writing and Communication Center. He's got several questions for you. Andrew?
Thank you, David, and hello, Nick, and thank you for doing this Wings of Wisdom podcast with us at the WCC. We really appreciate your insights. A quick question here about your research. You focus on areas of corporate finance, international trade, and applied microeconomics. What drew you to these particular fields of study?
Great question. So when I came to the U.S., to Indiana specifically, originally, I was thinking more among my research was more in between international finance and international economics, more like capital flows, and just taking some classes and meeting the advisors. One nice thing that Indiana did, we got a chance to interact with faculty doing various research in various fields. Sorry. I met with the trade group at Indiana University. Still is great. At that time, it was great. It was growing, and it just seemed very interesting. So I went from more, like I would say, macro-based, like country to country, to more the area in trade that it was exciting to me was actually observing firms interact, firms trading, and having finance background. I was like, well, we do have that was a growing field at the time in literature. How do financials influence trade? And I honestly was curious, how does it work the other way around? So how does the trade, how does the trade and trademark, export market influence our financials? So that's how it all kind of, moved from being more firm-based trade into intersection between the two. And applied micro, well, in general, I'm a strong believer in applied research. So I like when all my research was data driven. That's how actually I ended up pushing for business, encouraging students to get into business analytics. Applied micro is a very broad set of topics, and for instance, you can look at it from the standpoint again of trade, again more micro trade finance, or you can go into industrial organization, which is competition between producers. So this is I just in general enjoy data work and data analysis, econometrics is what we call it in economics. So that's what drew me to it.
Interesting. Thank you. Kind of continuing in that vein, could you share some insights into your recent publication on Section 301 tariffs, or perhaps your ongoing research about credit constraints and multi-market contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm interested in trade. Section 301 tariffs were an interesting case of trade retaliation. So with a group of my co-authors, my friends from Indiana University, we were just we were curious to look into what were the determinants of exemptions to tariffs, because that's there is a lot of literature on how tariffs can be harmful, but we were curious what determines whether tariffs is going to be waived or not. Because we earlier we had a discussion about a related topic. Research that a lot of my classmates worked on was Latin American based, and in Colombia specifically, there is something called the Vallejo plan, which allowed certain products to be brought into the country without any tariffs. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And the more recent project looks into the competition side of it, right? So multi-market contact literally means how much do I compete with the same firm abroad? Like, for instance, I compete with you in Mexico. If I compete, is there chances are I'm going to be also competing with you in Guatemala? And what determines how does it influence my export market behavior? That means price setting, like how much do I charge in those markets? And also, does it influence the trade flows, like volumes of trade? And we found interesting thing is that, first of all, when I am competing, say company ABC competes with company XYZ in Mexico, chances are they might collude in Guatemala and raise prices a little bit. So that's what multi-market conduct is about. And the effect actually gets stronger in the sectors that have high credit constraints. What does it mean? In simple terms, access to capital. If it is difficult for me to get credit simply to, for instance, build a factory, or even short-term credit, like line of credit, for most of export-import trade is done through trade credit terms. So if it's more difficult for me to obtain it, I'll be more collusive, meaning that I will have less incentive to retaliate on my competitor and actually negotiate. Well, we don't actually know if there was negotiation, but it seems like evidence says that there is more collusive behavior, right? So prices tend to be higher in those markets. So that's like a new ongoing project where still in like earlier stages of our work.
Nice. That's really interesting and obviously very applicable.
Very
So how do you,
relevant.
yeah,
Sorry.
very relevant. But it could be also a little bit dense. I'm speaking, of course, as a layman myself. How do you translate these findings into your classroom for your students?
Oh, great question. So I use some of my those of us who went through the academic publication process will always have a certain let's say feelings towards reviewer number two. I don't know if it's by accident or on purpose. The reviewer number two is usually like, reviewer number one praises your paper, reviewer number two just destroys it and gives you a bunch of recommendations, not always accomplishable, let's put it this way. They could be accomplished. So I usually tell them stories from the standpoint of, here is our business analytics 2 class. Here's what we're studying. Well, guess what? When I was writing this paper and we were going through the revise and resubmit process, this is what I've been dealing with. Like, this is the method that I actually was encouraged to use. We used it, and see, guess what? This is what we call a robustness check, for instance, right? So I give a lot of examples of my like in my analytics classes in terms of like, hey, toolkit that we're using, it's actually applicable to academic research, but also a lot of students interested in industry applications. So because we do research, you have to be very well versed in terms of applications of that research. So I taught a macro. So in 2023, I was teaching introductory principles of macroeconomics. And there were a lot of things going on at the same time, so it was perfect for me to teach. Terrible for everyone, like I would say, to live. Like, we lived through that. Rising prices, I could explain inflation. We had bank panics going on, tightening monetary policy. So it was all great. But again, there are students are asking, like, why is it going on? Like, yeah, you explain this as theory. Where is it coming from? I was like, well, let's look into some evidence. That was where the evidence comes from research. Typically, research investigates what was happening. In economics, for instance, right, in finance, we have some stylized facts we try to explain, right? That's like, we observe certain patterns. Let's try to explain what's causing those patterns. So definitely research should inform your teaching. So that's why we have AACSB accreditation, and we have several grades on who we are as faculty. So, like, for instance, I'm considered to be SA, scholarly active faculty, meaning that my research is informing my teaching. We have practitioners, the ones that inform their teaching through practice, right? So there, and in AACSB, this is the highest qualification you can get. And if AACSB is the stamp of approval, right? It's an international stamp of approval. It means that, yeah, a good teacher should be a scholar as well, and should be, informing their classroom through their own research endeavors.
Thank you very much for that answer. And if we do ever find that elusive number two of the reviewers, we'll call the guys and have a little chat with them.
There you go.
We'll move on to Kira, if you don't mind. And thank you, Kira, for being a part of this as well.
Yeah, the first question I have is, you teach a wide range of courses in finance, business analytics, and economics. What do you find most rewarding about teaching at Ashland?
There are actually several things. The fact, like, I would say the most important thing is seeing that what I teach is relevant to their future career. At the end of the summer, when we just start our fall semester, students at Kobe go through internships over the summer most commonly, and they come back and someone comes and say, "Hey, professor, thank you so much for what you've been teaching us in the class. I was using it over at my job during the internship, like make my students do the calculations of financial ratios, which nowadays, I mean, most if you use FactSet, use Bloomberg Terminal, those ratios are going to be calculated there. Investing.com even does it. But it's like, well, these are publicly traded companies, right? What if you have to deal with a private company that doesn't have their data public? No one else has calculated it for you. And they were saying, like, yeah, actually, I was working in the summer, for a big accounting company, accounting firm, and they were actually made me do this for a private company. And I was very thankful that you actually made me do that. So I would say the career aspect of it is like, hey, what I'm doing is actually helping someone. But also the moment when I like to call it the light bulb moment, when you're explaining something and it's not clicking in, and then finally it does, and you can see that like excitement in the face of a student. That's I would say like another one. But I mean, in general, teaching is I like to call it a performance art. If you either like it or you don't like it. So it's very difficult to find something in between. One of my early mentors, he said, when I was talking about just becoming an adjunct, and he said, well, you're going to do it for a semester. And if after the first semester, you're going to come in and be like, I want to do that again, that's your calling, it's your passion. But it can be that you'll be dreading every single moment of it. So.
Great. As the director of the graduate school and Choose Ohio First program as well, what have been some of your most meaningful initiatives?
I think the fact that we brought Choose Ohio First to business school was a huge factor. I generally tell my students you need to get as technical as possible when you are an undergrad, because getting any skill after you're out of college is just difficult, because you have a job, then you get a family, then you have other commitments, and learning something like, I went to grad school after working for 2 years. That was difficult to go from that mindset of, well, I have a 9-to-5 job and then I go home and have like maybe, or I am an adjunct, but still there is like a very specific routine you get used to. And then you go back to grad school and it's, a whole different thing. And when you're studying while you're working and you're in grad school, like, I have a few friends that are doing it right now, and that's a huge commitment. I'm very proud of calling them my friends, but yeah, so try to get as much as you can while you are in college. And Choose Ohio First encourages students to get into technical fields, which we have a huge shortage for. And you don't have to go into engineering, right? So you can do analytics, you can do supply chain, you can do management information systems. That's the reason why I went into econ and finance. This were the most technical fields I could get in before going into engineering. Like my level of math, I can probably do like maybe the first year of engineering, but then I'll be done. But so in business, we do use quite a bit of math in certain fields. And having the fact that we got Choose Ohio First to encourage our students, support them, this was a huge factor. And as a director of graduate school, it's more, I, in general, like optimization of process. I'm trying to make it as streamlined as possible for my colleagues to work on, to develop their programs. And I have a passion for graduate education. Again, most of my grad school life was in the US or generally abroad. So I think, especially in today's climate where a lot more people are considering grad school as a chance to switch careers, which is, I'm sure it was a thing in the past, but nowadays more and more adults are considering it. Well, I've been, a teacher, or I've been, working in, communications. Maybe I would like to get into finance. I would like to get into marketing. I would like to get into a different field. And master's programs present these opportunities where you can get a new skill, a new profession, in just 1 year and 2 years, which is a huge thing right now. So like I said, it's a huge passion of mine. I think this is the future of education. We're going to get more specialized master's programs. Being a director of graduate school, it's a very exciting project for me. So I would say the fact that I have a great group of faculty working with me in the graduate governance board, and just working with other graduate school directors, graduate program directors, is just really enjoyable. I like seeing that. I mean, we designed a MS in business analytics at Kobe, and STEM specialization management science, and just seeing that we actually attract students and they're happy to be here. They're happy with the program. That's just keeps everyone going. Just seeing that it works.
Definitely. The last question I have for you here is, how do you help students prepare for a data-driven job market that increasingly values technical and analytical skills?
Well, in a finance class that I'm teaching, I got away from using financial calculators, because the reality of it, outside of professional certifications in finance, you're not going to use a financial calculator to your real job. Instead, what you're going to be using is Excel. So I encourage anyone, what the first skills for a new data-driven technical world that we're living in? Excel has to be your bread and butter. This is like software. Nowadays with AI tools, it's so easy to learn it. But yeah, this is one of the first things I introduce into my finance class. I say, if you're not a finance major, you can't stand finance, the very least thing you will get out of my class is the ability to use Excel. But in terms of stimulating analytical education, right? In Kobe, we have a lot of synergies. Like, what I'm noticing, more and more of our majors are introducing some sort of an analytics class into the curriculum. And again, we have classes that don't require you coding, right? So one thing that commonly is associated with computers is, I have to learn how to code. I've never programmed in my life. This is unfortunately, pure coding is no longer in much demand, because AI can code, and it does it really well. Learning how to code today, you have an error, you throw it in ChatGPT, you throw it in Claude, it will find you the error and optimize your code. So that's nothing to be worried about. That's what I prove my students. Like, AI is not a substitute, it's a tool for you. So let's learn how to utilize it in our classes. And we have a class, for instance, MIS 272, Business Intel and Data Visualizations. That is literally just a class overview of different data visualization and analytics tools that we have right now in the market, like Power BI, Tableau. And students get a chance to learn at least the basics with them in their interfaces, what is considered to be good visualization. So I hope it answers your question. I mean, I can talk about it literally all day, so you can direct me where you want me to go with that.
Okay. Thanks, Kira. I think the next set of questions are Dr. Roble again.
So Nik, you've designed a new graduate program, and you have STEM and MBA specializations. What inspired these particular developments?
Well, I was an international student in the US, and my program was not STEM until a year after I graduated. Mm-hmm. So I generally think there is, again, we care about students here, and we want them to have the best possible opportunities. First of all, of course, we would like our international students to get a chance to experience the US job market, get a chance to work for a US company, and then translate this experience to whatever they're planning with it. And STEM definitely gives this advantage, because you can work for 3 years. You're eligible for a STEM exemption, STEM extension for your OPT, which gives you 3 years of work experience total. But also from the standpoint of the market realities, right? If we look where we have the hugest shortages, they are in STEM fields. And again, STEM is a very broad. We go as simple as business/data analyst to advanced engineering, rocket science. And when we proposed the program, there was a huge potential. It still is potential for this set of skills. So if we look at BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think we projected a growth of about 14% per year or something like that. Don't quote me on that number, because I don't remember from the top of my head, but it was like, it's one of the fastest growing industries. And if you search on LinkedIn for data analyst and just subscribe to updates, you'll get job notifications on a daily basis. That's how fast growing it is. Now, it's also being fast growing. It means it's a fast developing program. So nowadays, most of data analyst jobs require you to be able to use AI or understand how AI works. But still, again, this is one of those innovative degrees that we have, and very, very happy that we have it. Because I mean, to me, education has always been a field of innovation. The school that I came from in Russia was not in existence until 1992. So 1992, right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, my school was started. And by 2012, it was among top 50 research universities in Europe. So that, to me, they were innovators. We brought programs, we developed programs, we developed faculty, pushed faculty to, grow that. And we had one really good students with placements in top international companies and, graded programs across the globe. So I love education as an industry, and I love that it's an innovative one. So it really motivates me to get up every morning and, just new days and new discovery.
Very nice, very nice. And obviously that enthusiasm and feeling of just joy obviously translate into the classroom according to your students. You mentioned a little bit about AI already, and you talked in particular how it was really, really good at coding. What else do you see AI doing right now, and what are you seeing it do in the future? Things that you think are great and things that might be a little bit worrying or troublesome.
So we just got back from a great question. We just got back from a study tour with an MBA students from the United Kingdom. It's great to see some friends and just see how the country changed in 15 years since I left. But we got a chance through the study tour that our MBA students get a chance to do a study tour as part of the MBA tuition, was to look at how certain companies operate. And this was a marketing company we visited. And the company showed us how they design ads. And they showed us an ad that was fully AI designed. You know what? I would have never guessed this is a fully AI designed ad. There was a human there that was moving, the human that was, shots that we were taking. I would have thought it was just a model, like an actor or something. But it was not a real human. And I think they gave us like a test. We probably identified only 30% of all AI instances in there. So that is both scary and honestly exciting. Scary, why? I mean, it's so pretty obvious, right? If they can build a fake human now, they can mimic your voice, they can mimic your upload a few pictures from different angles, they can mimic your facial expressions. But also, what we can accomplish now is probably at a lower cost than we could, right? Getting a photo shoot somewhere could be very costly. You need to get permission, planning, and so on and so forth. If something goes wrong, you have to redo the whole thing. Now, with AI, we don't have to worry about it. AI can optimize a lot of processes, like I mentioned, coding. For me, teaching-wise, if we're struggling with a certain concept, I'm like, you know what? Let's try to use AI to help us here. One of the experiments that we'll try to do next semester, we know that AI learns, like ChatGPT learns based on your entries. How would responses to the same question differ among students based on, just keep using AI as you've been doing, but now let's ask it a question from my class. How would the response differ? And that will be also interesting. Because there are biases, right? So that may result in biases. We know that ChatGPT is a pleaser. He's trying to make sure that you're happy with the response. So that is a potential issue, right? And we will get, maybe not as accurate responses. But also, I think one of the greatest advantages it has, a lot of that routine work that for a lot of people is, I'm sure you will agree with that. Certain repetitive things that we have to do are not necessarily the most exciting things, like certain data cleaning processes, certain day-to-day report preparation, very time demanding, time consuming, and also not necessarily the best time for the best use of your time. I have a student right now in one of my classes who runs his own business, and he uses AI to prepare invoices and does a pretty good job. And he's learning with it because he said, I started with a lot of errors in my invoices, but then I learned how to prompt it prompt engineering becomes a new thing, right? How to find a prompt that will be accurate. So it's a mixed, I would say we have mixed opinions about it, mixed feelings about it, but I think it's the future and we have to embrace it. It's just, I'm sure we'll come up with more legislation restrictions over time, but also I think an important part of our education now has to be the introduction of AI in our courses and how to ethically use it, right? I mean, in accounting, that's a huge thing. I mean, AI makes a lot of mistakes in accounting. And CPA training hasn't changed, right? It's the same set of exams, it's the same set of knowledge you need to have. It's just the accountants actually can see how that makes mistakes and can fix it, and but they still utilize it for some basic data work or certain like information pull-up. Tell me where, for instance, that code in accounting, where's I can find that in accounting code standards. So I'd say it's again great time saver, but also we got to be very cautious with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you do in fact need that background knowledge. You need to be able to use it as a tool, not as the only source of your information gathering or information processing.
Absolutely. I can actually give you an interesting example. So I'm teaching a class right now, my finance class, and same course, same content. The difference between, say, spring of 25 and fall of 25 is that over the summer, ChatGPT learned how to solve time value of money problems. It actually got really good in finance, like basic finance, which is what I'm teaching. And in the past, I got like, say, an average score of like, say, 75% on the quizzes, like C's, higher C's. And, I would expect that probably my exams are going to be in the similar range. Now my all quizzes and homeworks are in the 90s range. But what happened, interestingly, the average for tests stayed the same. I got wider distribution. So I got students that used AI to learn some things that didn't click. Maybe my teaching textbook didn't work, but AI can explain it to the way where it helps. So I have more students getting in the 90%, 100. I got 100% on tests now. More like it happened in the past too, like 100%, right? 120% on the test. But now it's like the second test we had, and I'm having students with that, perfect scores. They can't use AI during the class. It's a locked down browser, so I monitor that. So it means that it helps them study. But I also having students that are getting like at lower side of the distribution. I'm going to tell you the scores there. But so my average is the same, but my spread is now bigger. So that's a great example, right? If you use AI to learn, it will help you. But you still need to have at least some basic understanding of what you're doing. But if you're just using it in order to, take a screenshot, plug it into the ChatGPT, and then it solves it, and you just plug in the number, probably didn't learn much. So that's definitely in favor of what you said. Yeah, we will. What I've been talking about, AI is a tool. It's not necessarily a replacement of knowledge.
Thank you very much. I think that's wonderful advice for the students, and that something that we will be reminding them of as we see AI evolve. I'll go ahead and pass the baton to Kira with her next set of questions.
Yeah, outside of research and teaching, what are some of your personal passions or projects that help you recharge and stay inspired?
Oh, great question. I mean, I really like traveling. Obviously we have a time and money constraint to travel all the time. But yeah, so that's one of my passions. Like one summer, 2 weeks, my wife, now wife, at the time girlfriend, we went across country from Ohio to California and back, spent 2 weeks seeing it. The country was one of the best experiences we ever had. I like going out in terms of exploring opportunities around Columbus in the area. Hiking is one of my passions as well. I'm also a huge car enthusiast, so I've been following Formula One since I was maybe 10. So my students right now watching Drive to Survive on Netflix, and they're like, "Oh, we heard you like Formula One," and I'm like snobbishly, I've been watching it probably before you were born, before Netflix made it cool. But no, a huge car enthusiast, car shows. A few friends in the area that own their shops, so tinkering with cars is another of my passions.
Awesome. You've presented your research at numerous conferences. What has been a memorable experience from one of these events?
Just the opportunity to actually work with and meet people from different schools that do similar research or complementary research to you, but once a presented paper, now published paper on Colombian that are related around Colombian exports and credit constraints there. And I was approached after my presentation by someone who worked in Central Bank of Colombia. I said, "Oh, by the way, saw your paper, love what you're doing. If you need like any advice, help, data-wise or anything, here's my business card. We really appreciate when people do research in our country, and if anything we can do to help, will be great." So like just having this opportunity to see that my research actually can be useful, because my research is relevant. That was a huge factor.
Awesome. My last question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to students striving for success in both academia and industry, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to fail. That's students, miss a homework, a quiz, they freak out, or they just didn't do well on the test. It's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. Those who succeed, those who do well, will get, very, successful entrepreneurs. Or they failed a lot of times. All successful people had a lot of failures. As long as it's a failure from which you learn, but it's not a failure, it's a learning experience. So that will be my biggest advice to incoming. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to challenge yourself and actually challenge yourself as much as you can. Do not overextend yourself, but if there's a chance of taking an easy path and chill with Netflix or actually learn something, because again, you'll have plenty of time to chill when you're retired.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Kara. I got the final couple here. You were already talking about your longtime passion for Formula One racing and cars. So in addition to that, what's a fun fact about you that maybe most students or colleagues here at AU might not know?
Oh, I'll start with a nerdy one. At one point, I spoke 4 languages. On top of my native Russian, I also was fluent in German and had a pretty decent command of Greek. Less nerdy one, actually, when I was in high school, and then when I was in England, I used to do competitive ballroom Latin American dancing. So I was actually representing my university from England, Durham University, and competed in the team there. So,
wow, great. So you could have a side gig on American reality TV if you wanted.
Dancing with the Stars, yeah.
That's great.
Probably not. That's a whole new level, but
that's a whole new level.
Yeah.
Related to that, just speaking of free time, and is there a book or a film or a piece of art, something creative that's really inspired you, influenced you personally? It could be influenced your teaching, but it could just be influenced you as a person.
It's hard to pick one, but I'm going to lean into what we've been talking with you about in terms of Formula One and failure, right? So there's one great movie that I tell everyone to watch if you're just trying to get into sport. It's Rush, Ron Howard's Rush 2013, I think 2012 or 2013 movie about the rivalry between Nik Lopatin and James Hunt, two Formula One drivers. And actually Nik Lopatin talks there quite a bit about failure. I mean, the guy who burned in the car and 6 weeks later managed to compete for the world championship and lost it by just 1 point, but he didn't get discouraged by that and just kept pushing. And in terms of books, again, quite a few, just to pick one, but I generally huge I really appreciate classic Russian literature, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. That's I would say they're not an easy read. As I like to joke, there are too many names in there, especially if you're a non-native speaker. It's too hard to follow, but very deep in terms of appreciation of life, mind, where we're going, where we're coming from. So again, hard to pick just one. And they're not an easy read, but I really appreciate going back to, pulling up Anna Karenina or pulling up the good old Crime and Punishment every so often and just go back and get something new out of it.
Yeah, those are heavy duty. That's like a book for a year, reading Brothers Karamazov or something is there's a lot there.
There's a lot of trauma with that in a way too, because as a high school student in Russia, you're forced to read them all over 3 months.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot of reading. But I appreciate it now.
Right. Have you, a final thing, have you ever done any car racing yourself?
A little bit of motorbikes when I was in high school.
Okay.
But I am trying to be more cautious on my liability. So I'll get back into that. I don't know, maybe a midlife crisis will hit me and I will join. There are quite a few amateur actually racing leagues here in Ohio, Mid-Ohio racetrack here as well. And I know that they have competitions there all the time. So maybe we'll see.
But like you said, insurance companies could be a little problematic with some of these midlife crises, newfound hobbies.
Exactly. Every time they ask me, do you have any, like, how active are you? I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you do exercise. I'm like, yeah. Do you do any extreme sports? No. I guess maybe I'll have to start lying about that.
Right. Okay. Well, hey, thanks so much. We're unfortunately getting near to being out of time, but we'd like to thank Dr. Nik Lopatin for joining us today. I'd like to thank the Associate Director of the Writing and Communication Center, Dr. Andrew Roble, and our great new undergraduate communication coach, Kara Kasser, for contributing to this. For more great conversations, please check out our previous WoW podcasts on YouTube and Spotify. And from all of us in the Writing and Communication Center at Ashland University, I'm David Carl, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the WoW podcast, where curiosity meets inspiration. Brought to you by the Writing and Communication Center at Ashland University.